How's the sound? Okay. Well, welcome everybody. Before we start filming, would you please silence your phones? I'm Barbara Holder. I'm a member of the Shasta County Fire Safe Council Board, and I head up the Education and Outreach Committee. And I wanted to thank our committee for all the planning and bagels and everything else that goes into this meeting. Ron Rustin is our executive director. Ron is over there. Fran Belden, member of the board and volunteers. Kat Camplin, our tech person back in the back. Julie Driver with KIXE Public Outreach. Doug Young also heads up the chipping program for the county and is a member of the Shasta Forest Village Fire Safe Council. So we're going to start this morning. I think we can record now, and we will record presentations, not the questions and answers, because you know, someone may not wish to be recorded, and we haven't gotten advance permission. I want to introduce our Shasta County Fire Safe Council President, Chairman actually, and founding member Jim Chapin. He's still serving us. And Steve Fitch, who's also on the board. I also wanted to introduce Corky Harmon from the Shasta County Board of Supervisors, standing up there, and Bruce Ross from Megan Dolly's office. Hello, hello. You've been a regular attender. We appreciate. There's just some wonderful interaction, contacts. This is a big effort we're all taking on, and the more we can coordinate, and the better off we will be in terms of spreading information. So with that, I'd like to introduce Rob Keenan, the KIXE General Manager here. We are extremely grateful again for the use of this facility and for the professional live streaming services. This meeting, after we do the live streaming, will be followed by our FireWise Leaders meeting. We kind of circle the chairs, and anyone interested in what FireWise communities are all about can stay, but we focus on FireWise business, and that is not recorded. So, Rob. I'll just stand here without negotiating this.
Oh, okay, trying to figure out the staff here. I just want to take a second to welcome everybody to the facility. We are offering this facility, this room. We have some other rooms as well. If you have a meeting, a town hall meeting, something, you have a group, mostly nonprofits, you want to come in and use the facility, contact us. We're trying to be more open and having those sort of things available to the community. It will only depend on scheduling and coordinating with that. I wanted to talk briefly about PBS Warn, and actually I'm not going to talk about it. Sue Maxey, our Chief Technology Officer, is going to talk about it, but it is the Warning Alert Response Network, which is part of, she's making sure I'm saying it correctly, yes. And I'm going to talk about briefly about how that fits into our ability to support you guys and your work in fire prevention.
Hi, I'm Sue Maxey. PBS has this WARN system, the Warning Alert Response Network. I had to write it down. They basically are a backup to the wireless emergency alerts. So basically, when FEMA sends out the message, they send it in parallel. They send it to the wireless, to like the wireless providers, and they also send it to us. If the wireless providers have an outage during fires and everything else, you know how jammed up they get. That they're able to still get those messages because of our broadcast. So I sent out a little flyer out there, and I also put my card on it So if anybody in your organization wants to know any more, you know, reach out to us.
Good. Well, I'd like to ask Ron Rustin to come up. We do a lot of coordination with other entities in the county, and we also do a lot of work that we'd like you to know about. So, Ron?
Thank you, Barb. Again, my name's Ron Rustin. I'm the Executive Director for the Shasta County Fire Safe Council. Just wanted to kind of give you a little update on what we're doing. Probably the biggest update we have for this group, for the FireWise group, is CAL FIRE has, it's CAL FIRE funding, but through the California Fire Safe Council, has opened up the county coordinator grant. So we applied for that. The funding should come in about mid-May is what the time frame on that is looking like. So we're excited about that. I'm especially excited about that because I get to hire another person or two, then I'll have to do this anymore. Or at least just be the backup on it. So it'll be nice having that additional people and that additional support for the FireWise communities out there. It's been a little bit of a challenge since that funding ended. We kept it going. The council's really committed to supporting the FireWise communities. So we've kept that going, but it's nice to get that funding in and get some more people hired up on the council to really get out and continue to support the FireWise communities out there. Another big component of what's going on that we're assisting with is the updated Shasta County Community Wildfire Prevention Plan, or Protection Plan, the CWPP. So that's on track. We had a meeting yesterday about it. Everything's looking really good, even with the pause that they had due to the grant funding and some of the pauses they had with that. It still seems to be on track as far as getting completed. So we should have a draft copy here sometime towards the end of May to start looking at. So those things are on track. Another thing that we're doing is we've applied for a rather large grant for defensible space work and home assessment work. And if that grant comes through, again, it's a USDA grant. Not sure what's going on funding-wise on that side, but they haven't told us those have been canceled, so we're encouraged. The last I heard is they should start sending out the awards sometime by late summer. So if we're fortunate enough to receive the funding for that, it'll allow us to do a whole lot of defensible space work as well as some home assessments throughout the county, again, focusing on our FireWise communities. That's what we want to do. Our fuels mitigation group, we're keeping that going, and got some partners in here at this meeting today that I'll ask to come up and give a little agency update here momentarily. But being a part of that fuels mitigation group, we know there's a big issue out there, right? You know, with fires and the amount of fuels in and around the communities. So we're just looking at coordinating with one another, you know, whether we're a governmental agency, a nonprofit, you know, whatever we are, city agency, we just want to coordinate together and look to partner as much as we can, or at least support one another on a lot of fuels mitigation work out there. So that's moving forward, and a lot of good participation, a lot of good planning, and a lot of good people doing a lot of good work out there. So with that, I think I just want to bring up some of the agency folks we have here to give a quick little update on what they have going. And I'm going to surprise them because I didn't tell them what order it would be in. So they don't know, so I'll just see how quick and ready they are. But looks like Sarah's the closest, so I'll have her come up from the city of Reading. And it was last minute. She really didn't know she was going to do this. So.
Thank you, Ron. Good morning, everybody. Always a pleasure to be here with everybody in a wonderful studio. So for City of Reading, an update, we got our CWPP finalized and approved. So we're going to be working on implementing all of that. The goats will be coming back. Everybody loves the goats. We're going to be really focusing, putting them in the high fire severity zones. So there's a lot of communities that like to see them, you know, hey, we called, we had them last year or the year before. It's not exactly going to be like that this year. So we're going to really focus on putting them where they're needed. We have our community emergency response team, CERT. We're going to be using them to go to these targeted areas within our CWPP for public education about home hardening, defensible space. So if you live, you know, in the west side of town or almost anywhere in Reading, you're probably going to see our green shirts walking around doing some door-to-door talks about fire safety. Additionally, we got approved for our CAL FIRE grant. We're going to be working primarily in the Lost Lane area and in the north. We have about 300 acres that we get to work on to mitigate. And we'll be reevaluating the highest risk within those areas, so our infrastructure, and then kind of working our way down to communities. We've also applied for a U.S. Forest Service grant, and we'll see how that goes, but in that we would be able to work on an additional 700 acres and then also have some employee coverage for the next 5 years in funding. So, yep, that's where we're at. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Sarah. And the city of Reading is also really supporting the Firewise communities, and spoke at one, got another one coming up. So actually trying to get some Firewise groups going in the city of Reading, which is exciting and good. So
What does that mean?
Community Wildfire Protection Plan. Okay, Jesse? Little update from the U.S. Forest Service.
Thanks, Ron. Hi, I'm Jesse Pinland. I'm one of the fire prevention technicians out of Shasta Lake. Quick little update. So we're going to be bringing our temp firefighters on real soon. So this is kind of beginning our annual training season. Budget cuts. Our forest prevention budget got cut by about 1/3. So unfortunately, we're not going to be doing all of the events that we were doing last year. That being said, we're going to do as many as we can as our budget allows. And quick update on the I-5 project. It starts at the Pitt River Bridge on Shasta Lake and goes all the way up to the city of Lakehead. We have finished phase 2 cutting for about 2,200 acres. We've been able to burn about 200 of those acres. It's a pile burn. Unfortunately, as conditions are a little bit unpredictable, we can't always burn as much as we'd like to. We had big plans to burn a lot of piles this winter. We got about 200 acres burned, so we're going to continue on with that. We're starting phase 2.5, I was told this morning, and we're going to have a contract out to line all of the units. And that's because we've started what's called a type 2 burn plan for these piles. Typically, we have a type 3 burn plan to where we have to keep the footprint of the pile in the pile, but with our type 2 burn plan, we can let it creep a little bit around, but in order to do that, we have to have the entire unit line. So we're gonna work on that. The Shasta McLeod unit had burned about 300 acres last week. Tomorrow, they're planning on 100 more acres. And the TRMU is burning 100 acres today. And that's it. Thanks, Ron.
Thanks. All right, thank you, Jesse. And last but certainly not least, we have Aaron from CAL FIRE.
Good morning, everyone. Aaron Hathaway, CAL FIRE, Shasta Trinity Unit. I'm the unit pre-fire engineer. So as some people might have seen through some public outreach and everything, May 1st starts burn permits. So for those that are looking to burn piles of 4x4 size or smaller, it's going to be permit required. That also does not exempt you from calling air quality control and checking with them to make sure that's a burn day. So just make sure that you're doing both those steps come May 1st, and you should be safe in the case of burning a pile. Other than that, the unit, Shasta Trinity unit is up to full staffing. We're pretty excited about that. We're a little earlier than we typically do. Usually that's like mid-June. We reach that full staffing level, so we're excited to have all those on. That's helping us a lot in our prevention phase. We've been working a lot with the Firewise groups, going out to specific activities and events that are being put on. So as you guys have probably seen, we have engines there helping, teaching, educating, And this last year, we're really excited. We ended up doing just over 7,000 defensible space inspections for Shasta and Trinity units. That's largely due to the fact that our engines are actually out doing defensible space inspections now as well. So if you see them and they're knocking on your door, please invite them onto your property to take a look and check out your defensible space. We're working currently with multiple active VMPs, which is a vegetation management program, which is where we go and do broadcast burning on properties. We're working with them, looking for windows of opportunity to go and do those burns inside the unit. Last year, we'd actually completed more than we ever have, so we're really excited about that. Not ever, I guess. You go back to the 90s, we did a lot more recent activities. So we're really excited about that. Last thing, all my defensible space inspectors have been hired back on, and so you're going to start seeing them attending a lot of meetings and coming out as well and doing a lot of informative information for you guys. But that's it for CAL FIRE.
Great. Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate it. Okay, unless I missed something that you guys can think of, that's all I have, so I'm going to turn it back over to Barb. And go hide.
Thanks. The Shasta County Fire Safe Council holds, is it quarterly meetings with all of the agencies in the county involved with fuels reduction. And I think that's a really smart thing to do. So we know one another, we're coordinating, we're able to set priorities, and it's a really good function of our Fire Safe Council. Yeah, I wanted to thank Aaron too. These folks just go out to the Firewise communities on their own time, on Saturdays. You know, the Firewise communities are all volunteer, and it's some work. So it's really great when the agencies can go out and support the Firewise communities. This is pretty much a volunteer effort. So we're right on schedule. Let's go on to our presentation. Our Undersheriff Gene Randall wanted to be here, asked to be here. He must be doing his job today because he's not here. But anyway, his able Lieutenant Rob Sandblum from the Office of Emergency Services is here. And Rob, I wanted to say thank you. You're picked on a lot to go out to Firewise meetings, and I know you don't just have a whole lot of extra time. We're appreciative of your being here today and of what you do to keep the citizenry safe year-round. So talk to us about how you're ready and how we should be ready. There's the spot, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Lieutenant Rob Sandblum, Shasta County Sheriff's Office, Office of Emergency Services. With that umbrella, I have all the emergency management within Shasta County. I have all of our specialty teams, so our SWAT team, bomb, dive, boat, search and rescue, drone, hostage negotiation. And then I also do the training for our department as well. So as Barbara said, you know, my day is always full, but I always enjoy coming to these type of meetings or other community events when we can get people in a room, we can have these discussions. I was talking with Yvonne before we started here from Whispering Woods up in Shingletown with their group, Firewise group up there, and I had spoke last year, and because of the information I provided their group when the park fire approached Shasta County, she said their group was very prepared. They took my words to heart, understanding what we want them to do, being prepared, being ready to go, and people were able to get out in a reasonable amount of time and not feeling that they were rushed or that the fire was on top of them. Even though the fire never did touch Shasta County, we made sure that we gave ample warnings to get people out and get them moving. So this is a Firewise meeting, but when we talk about emergencies in Shasta County, it's not always fire. Okay, an emergency could be a variety of things. And if anybody can think back to February of this year, what other emergency did we have going on? The flooding, right? And we had a lot more water and a lot more flooding issues, I think, than we normally have in Shasta County. So again, Everybody seems to talk about that four-letter word fire when we're talking about preparation and planning, but it could be any disaster. It could be flooding, it could be a volcano, an earthquake, some type of chemical spill, anything that can go on. So the preparation should, for the most part, all be the same for everybody when they're prepping for an emergency. So I don't want you guys just to sit there as a bump on the log. I want you guys to participate with me. When we're talking about preparation for an emergency, what does that mean, to be prepared? A plan of action, okay? And when you say plan of action, what does that mean?
Have your, have a list of things to do to prepare for any disaster,
Okay?
and have responsibilities given to your community.
Okay, so having that plan of action, a list of responsibilities, things that you may need to have, or maybe packed, knowing where you might go, knowing who you might call, what things you might need to take, okay? And in that plan of action and in your households, we probably have a husband, wife, we probably have children, maybe grandchildren, but we also have what in a lot of households? Pets, right? And so don't forget about those pets. We want to be prepared also to evacuate pets, okay? Small pets, dogs, cats, things like that, you should be able to grab and go, hopefully. Large animals, you may need help. Sometimes sheltering in place for those large animals might be the best bet. We will have our animal control officers come out to help with evacuations if need be. If it's you don't have the time to get those animals evac'd. And then we also implement our search and rescue mounted team. That's our horse posse. They come out with their empty trailers and they help at time will gather the larger animals as well. So having that bag packed, having that plan ready to go. What's another thing in planning you should know? Travis?
Yes, sir. Just having resources available. Like, for instance, you were mentioning the flooding. We should have things like, especially if you don't even live in a floodplain, get those sandbags during the summer months and stuff like that, and have them regularly available so you're not looking for it last minute.
So not everybody heard Travis. He's talking about when it comes to flooding, being prepared with sandbags. If you know you're at a low-lying area, somewhere that may flood, get those sandbags ahead of time, be ready, put them where they need to go so that you can help mitigate, water coming onto your property or into your buildings. Okay, what else? Know your zone, okay? And knowing the zone is what?
So that you know if your zone is in that evacuation order or not.
Okay, all right. Another hand I saw over here?
I was going to say zone as well.
Zone, okay. And I'll lump this in with the zones. So in your zones, where you're living, what should you know if you need to leave? Evacuation route, right? And that's the one big question everybody asks. Hey, how come you haven't told me my evacuation route? How come we don't have a map with our evacuation route posted? Well, we don't know what the incident's going to be. And we have a lot of areas and a lot of communities up here that have one way in and one way out. So if I tell you that you need to take Road A and the incident is on Road A, I've just put you into the incident, right? So sometimes sheltering at home can be the better option, all right? But if you have multiple ways to leave your residence, that's what we want you to understand, knowing that there's different routes to go. And depending on where you live, not all those routes might be blacktop. And so you want to be prepared that your vehicle can handle, with suspension, clearance, and fuel, that if you have to take a back road out, a 4x4 road a little bit, that you're prepared and you're ready to do that. Okay? If you're being prepared, and being prepared means you have a go bag, what kind of stuff do we want to have in that go bag? Medications, okay? There's a new thing coming out that I've heard about, and I think it's talking about the 6 Ps, and I believe it might be on the CAL FIRE website, or but the 6 Ps, and they talk about, photographs, prescription, plastic, meaning your credit cards, pets, things along those lines, being prepared. So if you're in not a lot of time, for an incident, and you need to go right now, seconds or minutes are what's happening. You just don't have the time. These are the things you want to have in that immediate bag and go, or the things you're grabbing. Travis.
Yes, sir. I also like to say, make sure things are not expired. Check those frequently. And also make sure that your to-go bag is season appropriate. I usually try to inform people that if it's in the springtime, start getting those warmer clothing and stuff like that in there, warmer supplies. And then vice versa for fall, once fall hits. Trade that stuff out for some warmer stuff, blankets, thicker blankets, coats, that type of stuff.
And that would be the same thing if you're putting, water or bags of jerky in your to-go bag and nothing's happened for 6 months. You probably want to be rotating that out, because nothing is worse than pulling out a, jerky that's really dry and expired and has a funky taste. So, but if you had a little bit more time, you're getting the notification, hey, you need to think about evacuating. The incident's coming your way. We want to get you to safety. But you had a little bit more time than just that go bag. What other things are you thinking about taking?
We gotta think about your important papers.
Okay, some important papers. Okay, birth certificates, deeds, insurance paperwork, those kind of things, right? What else? Photos, yep. A computer, sure. And
If you have pets,
dog leashes, yep. Dog leashes, little bowls for their food and water, little bags of food. Phone chargers, right? Okay. And then with the computers or laptops, you want to make sure you bring the chargers for those as well. When it comes to photographs, a lot of people, in this room might have the old-fashioned photo albums on the shelves in their homes, or maybe you've got them in a tote ready to go. I think younger generations, everything's done on their cell phone, everything's going to the web or to the cloud. So, once that stuff goes to that cloud, that stuff's saved. So just know that that's an opportunity for you to put stuff there. That's less stuff you have to worry about taking out of your home when you leave. Okay, so just know that there is a little bit of technology that can help us out. Okay? But the important things when you're getting out of your homes for whatever that emergency is, being prepared, having your go bag, having a plan of where you're going to go, and communicating with your family so that they know. Because how many people here have family outside of Shasta County or outside of the state of California? Yeah? And we know in today's times, as soon as something happens, through the media, that information is spread across the nation. So people are going to start finding out. They're going to start trying to call. The last thing you want to get is a phone call from a brother or sister or something like that. Hey, what's going on? Are you in danger? When you're trying to pack up the car, grab a dog, load everything up and get going, right? But you want to be able to let them know at some point, hey, I'm safe, we're at the evacuation shelter, or we've gone to a hotel in town, or guess what, we're on our way to your house now. All right, so don't forget that communication plan. Okay? Anything else? Any questions for me that you have? Yes, sir.
We're from Happy Valley, and we have a number of customers, I guess, that their issue was, we have the defensible space inspections, but the problem is the neighbor. So there's I guess there's a defensible space ordinance that's trying to get it happen or something. I don't know if it's happened, but if it does become official, what is your role as far as getting things enforced?
I would think that through the defensible space, that's going to be more on the Shasta County Fire and CAL FIRE side of the house, where they would be going out and doing those inspections and then issuing their recommendation of what needs to be upgraded or fixed. And I'll, if Aaron needs to come back and probably answer that question for you a little bit more in depth of how they would mitigate that, and get compliance for, yeah, your yard is nice and everything's trimmed back, you got all the defensible space that you're required to have, or maybe even more, but that neighbor isn't doing anything. I think that they would have some mitigation with that. Yes, ma'am.
That's my situation completely. I talked to Chris Kellstrom in our meeting last Thursday, and he has all the ordinance wrote and ready to present to the Board of Supervisors, and he thought it would be on the agenda in May.
Okay.
They don't know the exact date yet.
All right. This group here, Shasta County's large. We have a lot of vegetation out there. This group is making sure that chunks are being taken out, a little at a time. And it's working. We would like to see it get bigger chunks at a time. We'd like to see it go faster. But the wheel doesn't turn that fast in that system, and trying to get everybody to understand why we need it, and trying to get people to allow people, or to allow the right people to come on and help mitigate the vegetation takes time, but it is working. It's a slow process, but it is working. We are making progress. Anything else? No?
I had one thought. I know a number of our Firewise communities have designated shelter-in-place areas. Dusty Oaks is one. Inwood has 2 signed large irrigated pasture areas for taking, animals, backhoes, whatever. We probably have not let your office be aware of those, and it would probably be good to know what they are and where they are. So if you're giving direction, maybe that's something internally we can tie together and get to your office. Because especially with stock, even in the park fire, apparently you couldn't get on Highway 44 for a long time.
And that's a good point too. So along with knowing your evacuation routes or sheltering in place, knowing your areas, if there are, parks or big meadows or clearing areas, those could be a potential area to shelter up. And, because if it's a park, there should be short grass, maybe some cement, maybe some playground material, stuff like that. That's going to be an area of some safe haven for you. Just like if you have, I think we talked about it with Yvonne's group up there. There was somebody that had a big meadow, and they were going to go out there and even cut the grass down even more and grade it a little bit, and people would be able to pull their campers and stuff like that and kind of circle the wagons a little bit and use that if they weren't able to, use an escape route, or if sheltering in place wasn't an option. So there are quite a few things to think about and being prepared for. It's not just, hey, I got to jump in my car and run out and get onto Highway 44 and then not move kind of thing. But when that evacuation order is given, that's the time to be moving and going, not waiting longer and longer and longer. And as we saw in the park fire, again, the fire never hit Shasta County. We had plenty of time to get those evacuation notices out and get people the time to get out. And even with 44 backed up, there was time. Yes, sir.
Do you think a golf course would qualify for a shelter-in-place type of designation?
Absolutely. And those that have the big sand pits, the time you don't want to be in one, that's probably a good time to be in one, or near a pond. I would caution you, being near a pond or any water obstacle on a course, is that if it's a fire that we're talking about and the fire is nearby, that they may be dipping helicopters in those ponds. So just be aware of what the air operations are doing and stuff like that. Yes, sir.
What about a school? That would be appropriate?
In what sense?
Like parking lot, playground area. Shasta, I'm just thinking of the school there, that might be someplace to be playground.
Yeah, Aaron, you want to?
Yeah, I think some of it just depends on the type of fire behavior you're looking at, right? You looked out at our Southern California counterparts this last winter in the Eaton fire. schools burn up in that fire. So all these things are like a little bit fire dependent, right? Not one time it might work, the other time it might not be a great option, maybe trying to get out of the fire. So I think it's just a lot of it's depending on fire dependent, right? What we're dealing with and fuels we have around us. In the old Shasta area, where we've had the car fire burn through recently, you do have a lot of like dead standing manzanita and stuff like that, but then you have a lot of annual grasses as well and new brush coming through. So you just got to kind of weigh what you think the flame lengths are going to be. Flame lengths pretty common, 3 times the height of the fuel.
So with that information, and then using the car fire as an example, you know, we weren't having people go stage up at the old Shasta Elementary School. We were getting people, you know, out of that area. And it was Shasta High School was designated as the evacuation shelter. And then obviously, as we saw through that incident, we even had to evacuate the evacuation shelter and stuff like that. So, I mean, yeah, if we look at the Eaton fire and stuff like that and look at how destructive that was, and if it just burns down a school and you're trying to use that, you know, you're there in that incident, you know, hopefully just like the park fire and other ones that we have enough time, we're able to get that early warning and we're able to get people out, and through these messages, through these meetings, the messages go out to the rest of the community that they're prepared, they're ready to go, so it isn't a shock or surprise when you get a knock on the door, a phone call, your cell phones start going off because of watch duty or Genesis Protect or Shasta Alert, any of the notifications that I hope that you're all signed up for, that it's not a shock and surprise and you're ready to go. And that's the other thing that we don't want to happen. I don't want to see it happen across the nation, let alone California, especially here in Shasta County, that any of these emergency alert systems are used to say, okay, it's over, or you know, anything but, hey, it's time to go. Because if we do it that way to where we start putting other messages in there, people will become numb to that alert going off. They will alter their alert system to where they don't get certain messages, and then when it's important enough, life-saving enough to get that message to get out, they may not get it. Or think it's that important, or get up off the couch when their phone goes off. So that's very important to make sure that you're signed up for those things, and when they go off that you're ready to go. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you for being so available, Rob, to Firewise communities and to us. Much appreciated. The Education and Outreach Committee, when we think about information we need to bring, we realized we didn't know much about any plans for the disabled community. And as we saw in the LA fires, there were some pretty sad stories regarding that subject. So Rob helped us connect with Far Northern, and we met Travis McIvor. And Travis, come on up and I'll let you introduce your assistant or the person accompanying you, to tell us about this subject. There's this.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, first I'd like to thank everybody for having me here today so I could explain a little bit more about what we do. I'm sure a lot of you probably aren't completely familiar with the regional centers and what they do, but there's 21 regional centers throughout the state of California, and we work with those for developmentally disabled individuals, and we provide various different programs for them to help them become successful throughout their life. So that's what they do. What I do with Far Northern Regional Center is I'm the emergency coordinator, so I watch all emergencies throughout our region. So that could be, as the lieutenant said, flooding, blizzards, tornadoes even occasionally. all of that. I'm watching, and I'm kind of the eyes and ears for our community for that. I'm a little bit of a behind-the-scenes type of guy most of the time. I'm in charge of 9 counties, and I'm going to try and name them all off for you. So it definitely keeps me busy in the summertime. But I have Butte County, Glenn County, Lassen County, Plumas, Siskiyou, Trinity, Modoc, of course Shasta, and Tehama. So each one of those counties I'm watching pretty much 24/7 for all of our emergencies. And I also work with a few other groups too. I try to stay available for everybody, for VOADs to whatever the case may be. But I have a system that I use. It's called Everbridge. And each one of our clients that are registered through Far Northern Regional Center and receive our services, I have their addresses on a map. And what I can do is I use that map, and if I see, for instance, there's a fire nearby, I will alert those individuals and keep them notified of, hey, do you need to start preparing to evacuate or maybe shelter in place? Or see if you need any resources to also evacuate. There's many that may not have a vehicle or cannot drive, and if that's the case, I kind of work as a liaison with the sheriff's department, fire departments, and say, hey, I have an individual, they're kind of in an isolated location, or whatever the case may be, and get them the help that they need to properly evacuate. I'm the only person that does what I do, so it's, like I said, it's a 24/7 type of job. Especially in the summertime, I don't ever sleep. But it's really rewarding. I'm glad to do what I do. Prior to this, I was in the Army for 20 years as military police. That's kind of how I got a lot of my emergency coordinating background before I started working here. And I also do a lot of educational outreach events. I have a YouTube page where I talk about how to prepare for emergency events, such as packing a to-go bag, planning escape routes, and just having maybe contacts, all that type of stuff. So education is a big piece of staying prepared for any of our emergency events. I try and keep everybody informed of even things like such as rock slides, landslides that may impact routes to power outages, the planned power outages. So I work with that as well, keeping individuals informed. We have a lot of individuals that might have things like CPAP machines, those type of things that a power outage can greatly impact them. So I educate those on how to get some of those resources, such as the medical baseline program with PG&E, if that is a needed situation as well. Because a lot of people just don't understand that these resources are out there or how to get to those resources. So I kind of work, like I said, a lot behind the scenes on how to keep everybody educated and what resources are out there, and even provide guidance for after the emergencies as well. For instance, the park fire that we had last year, I did a lot of communicating with what type of shelters are available, or for instance, how to work with insurance companies if somebody may have lost a house or had a house damaged. So I do a lot of that as well. So I'm trying to think of what else, but that's kind of basically really what I do. And as I said before, each regional center throughout California has one person assigned, just like what I do. So each area has their own sections. I have the 9 counties up here. The area to our west is Redwood Coast Regional Center, and they have like Humboldt County, Mendocino County, and stuff like that. And we also work together if there's, let's say, a fire in Siskiyou or something, and it's kind of getting close to them, or vice versa. We'll work together to also coordinate resources and stuff like that as well. And I think that's about it. If anybody has any questions. Here.
How are you
That's a good question. So we're funded, we're a nonprofit organization, but we're funded by DDS through the state of California. So we're considered nonprofit, but we still get state funding. And one more thing I wanted to say, just to give you an example of how busy we actually are for the individual we serve. Just last year, I evacuated
804 individuals throughout the fire season last year. So we have a lot of individuals in our community, and I like to speak out for them so they're not ever forgotten about. So please keep those individuals in mind because they definitely need our assistance. And I saw a hand in the back. Yes, ma'am? Yes, it's going to be those that are developmentally disabled. So I don't necessarily handle all of the AFN community. For instance, if you're in a situation where you just have a wheelchair, that doesn't necessarily fall under us. But think of like maybe somebody with autism. As long as they're registered with us, we will serve those individuals, and I'm basically their lookout for any type of an emergency event. Anything else?
So then
Yes, ma'am.
if you have an emergency, you're not transporting them, how do you connect, for example? Who do you connect with? Sheriff's office?
Sure. So, for instance, I had an individual in Wairika last year that needed to be evacuated. And what I did, I reached out to the sheriff's department, and then we coordinated between the sheriff's department and the fire department to go in there and get them the assistance they needed. But they were in the Wairika. It was probably around July. All my fires are starting to blend in together, so I don't remember the name of the fire. But they definitely needed to evacuate. And one other thing that I'll say with that is a lot of the times I try and stay a little bit ahead of the fire department for our individuals because they tend to need a little bit more time to prepare and move. I have an app, and I track wind speed and fire perimeters. I get satellite data and all that kind of stuff. And I still use Cal OES, I use Cal Fire, county fire departments, sheriff's departments to get all my information as well, and I use all of that together. And if I feel like there's an individual, let's say they're on one road in, one road out, and I'm kind of worried that the fires might be getting a little bit close to them, I don't necessarily always wait for that zone. I tell them directly, so I'm not telling the whole community, but that particular family or that member of the family, they're the ones that get my message. They go, hey, please start preparing now to kind of get out of that. And like I said, that's just because a lot of those individuals do need a little bit more time or maybe additional resources to get out of there. So that's why I do it that way. If anybody has any questions about that. No? All right, I think that's it. Once again, thank you for having me.
Again, another example of the need for tight coordination, knowing who we are and how we work together. So we are ahead of schedule. Tell Gene Randall, Rob, that we'll have him again. He likes this Fire Safe Council and asked to come, so I'm sure something pulled him away. But we'll invite him back another time. Let's go into our FireWise leaders meeting. Let's take a coffee break, get to know one another. I'm sure we have bagels, donuts, and coffee left. And anyone is welcome to stay and hear what's going on with FireWise communities. We'll just circle the chairs because it's easier to talk to one another. We're going to be talking about how to use our $5,000 mini grants to each community. And we're going to be talking about coordination and some technology from CAT.